Easy guys, welcome back to another video. In this episode we're going to be looking at how to create a variety of drums in the style of that kind of minimal techie rolling sound that you hear in the 1985 overview tracks. We'll be going through how to pick your sounds, style your sounds, arrange your sounds and mixing your sounds. So let's get into the project. So in a new project I just quickly want to run through kind of what I've got set up here. So on the right I've got a bunch of groups and audio tracks that houses each individual track in their own designated section or group. And then what I've done is gone to each audio track, added like an EQ, and then on the hats, for example, I've added an EQ and a bunch of compressors, just because I know this is what I'm going to do anyway. So I've set this up once and then come over to File, Save Live Set as default set, so that when every time I open it up, I have these audio tracks and groups already set up, and it just allows for a much quicker workflow. And on the topic of a much quicker workflow, I don't have it now because this is a new update of Live 12, so I'm still sort of organizing all my things properly. But normally I have a folder down here which contains a bunch of kind of personal favorite sounds. So rather than going through my samples every time I start a track, which is a very tedious process, I'll go through it once, favorite the sounds I like. I'll do kind of 6 to 12 hats, 6 to 12 snares, 6 to 12 kicks. And just add those to a folder so that when every time I go start a new track, I know that these are my favorite sounds, and then I can sort of mold them then individually to sort of fit the track a bit better. So what I'm going to do now quickly is just go through the samples and just pick a couple of sounds that I want to use, and then we'll go through kind of shaping them and arranging them and doing a little bit of mixing on them. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I've picked a handful of sounds. I've picked just one kick, one snare and a handful of hats. Just sound like that, nothing special. First thing I'm going to do is just quickly create a basic drum and bass pattern. Just adjust the things here, and then come into here, move these out of the way for a minute, create this. Okay. And what I'm going to do, you don't necessarily have to do this because I've got a compressor that's already doing it, but I'm just adjusting the velocity of the hat just to make sure that the track doesn't sound so robotic. Okay, I'm going to grab another hat now and do the same with the velocity. These are 4 minus 2. I can do it on these because the hats aren't kind of hitting where the kick or snare are hitting at. Cool. Okay. I'm going to duplicate this. I'm just going to shrink these just so you guys can see a little bit better. Okay. At the end of the second, I'm going to duplicate this and add one of these hats here. Cool. Okay. I'm going to duplicate it again, and then at the end of the 4, do another change, get rid of this, and add this kind of splashy ride sort of thing. And then what you could also do is just add a kick at the end here and change the velocity. And what you can also do is at the end of the 2, change the velocity of this kick as well. Nice. Okay, everything's sounding a little bit loose at the moment, so what we can do is do a little bit of shaping and mixing just to get everything kind of tight and cohesive. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tune my drums to the right key of the track. I really recommend this just because it's kind of just general practice. People kind of skip it because they don't think that drums should be tuned, but I definitely think that they should be tuned. And I'm going to show you an easy way of how you can do this. So obviously right now you might not be at a stage where you have decided of what scale you want to produce in. Obviously that kind of gets decided as long as you go through the track. But I tend to produce in D sharp minor or E flat minor, just because I kind of like the scale. I like it in terms of producing in kind of minimal drum and bass, but obviously it's completely subjective. It's up to you. So what I like to do is come to the kick, loop a section of the kick so that it's just repeating constantly, and then coming into the EQ, and then you can see the fundamental here. The fundamental is playing at F, which is E flat basically in the D sharp scale, minor scale. So we could leave it as that, or what we can do is come down here, create a MIDI track, open up the MIDI, click scale and highlight scale, and then also it will show you all the keys that are in the scale that you're producing in. You can also turn it off and it'll still kind of show you the keys. It'll highlight it purple. So the kick was playing at F, which is basically E sharp. So we can see that it's in the scale, but we can also decide to go down to D sharp. C sharp's a bit low. So you could also go up in pitch. But for me, I personally kind of like a deep low kick. So I'll probably stick with F or E sharp, just because I'm going to probably have sub basses and other basses that are going to be in D sharp, so it just allows a little bit of room for the bass and kick to breathe. So we'll stick with E sharp for now, but if you wanted to go to D sharp, for example, then we just have to come down 2 semitones, because if you come in here, 1, 2, so that's basically how you tune your kicks to the right pitch. So, and then what you can do then is come back into your kick and just check that if it's in the right key. Okay, so now that is done, I'm just going to quickly tune the snare. It's basically the same process, but what I like to do instead, because a snare is a little bit harder because of how much frequency is in the spectrum, what I like to do is just grab the span, Foxengo span, which is free. Click to high res. Let me just make sure that everything's soloed and looped. So this F sharp, about F sharp, is the fundamental. So again, come into here, check if F sharp's in your scale. It is, so I can leave it, or I can come up or down. Obviously you can transpose your sounds to better fit the track you're making, to better shape the sound. So I mean, just for example sakes, we'll go to G, which is 2 semitones up. See? Obviously we don't want to do that, so I like the snare where it's at, so I'm just going to leave it. But that's how I would tune my drums appropriately. So yeah, you can also tune your hats, although they don't have to be so precise, just because hats' primary function is to provide kind of like a bright, wide range of frequencies. So you don't necessarily have to tune your hats, but I would highly recommend tuning your kick and snare. Okay, so now that's all done, we can go ahead to kind of just tune some basic mixing, just to get everything kind of tight and cohesive, like I said earlier. So for the kick, I'm just going to add an EQ and cut off the high ends and just boost the mids just a tiny little bit. Just going to loop this and just play it a second. Okay, so next I'm going to add a bit of stereo width to the kick. Obviously, you don't want to create any kind of stereo field within the low end, so what I would do then is to duplicate the EQ, change it to mids and sides, and remove from 120. So I'm just going to adjust this now. Doesn't have to be a lot. Just add some stereo to it. That's fine. Okay. This is coming in a bit hot now, so what we can do is just turn the gain down. Cool. Okay. Next, I'm just going to add some saturation. So saturation knob, pretty sure it's still free. Really good saturation, and just add just a tiny bit. That's all it needs. Okay, and now before and after. So gets rid of that click, makes it kind of a little bit tighter. Cool. Okay, for this now, I'm just going to start with some basic EQing, get rid of the low end. Boost. More attack. Don't want to do it too much because it's really what I'm going to do as well is come over to here. So down here I've got a return setup, which is basically an empty club reverb with an EQ cutting out the lows, and a compressor which is sidechained to the kick. Really simple reverb chain, and I'm just going to add that to the snare. It's a bit too much, so I'm going to add some saturation, sat 2 possibly. If you don't have Saturn 2, you can use saturation knob or the Ableton saturator or any saturation of your choice. So I'm just going to pick just a kind of a preset. Cool. And then I'm going to add a clipper, free clip, which is free. And then maybe kind of before that, the EQ. Okay, so what I've done is cut out the sides, low end on the sides, and just sort of shaped it a bit better. So before and after. Cool. Just gonna double check what that's sitting at. 12. Nice. I might add 12. 12. Nice. Okay. Okay, so left the hats. For this, rather than going through each individual hat, I mean, my process for hats are basically the same. It's EQing at the lower end, shaping it slightly with the EQ, either bringing down the highs or enhancing them, adding some reverb, maybe some kind of processing such as kind of redux or something, just to make the hats a bit more grittier, but I'll show that now. But yeah, I'll just work on my process on the first hat, and then you can apply it to your other hat. So yeah, grab a EQ. Oh, I've put that on the wrong one. EQ. Okay, grab a reverb. Grab another EQ. Mid sides, cut out the sides. Boost. What I'm doing here is just boosting the stereo field in the sides for this hat. So yeah, this is kind of just the basic kind of mixing I would place on a hat. Just an EQ, a reverb, and another EQ, just make sure that there's no reverb in the low end. I've also gone ahead and reversed kind of this last bit just for personal preference, and I'm just going to go ahead and do that to the other hats. It's basically the same process. You can like experiment with kind of different effects, like a redux, for example. Just to add some grit. I think there's even a preset in here called Dirt and Grit. You know, just add some character to your hats, but just gonna keep it super clean and Just going to keep it super clean. So I'm going to do that to the other hats. Same process, EQ, reverb, and I'll get back to you when it's all done. Okay, so I've gone ahead and processed all the hats appropriately. I've adjusted the levels. I've also adjusted the left and right signals, so this hat is playing slightly more to the left and this hat's playing slightly more to the right. Okay, so I've gone ahead and decided to just process the drum bus separately, and I'll just kind of go through what I've added. So initially I've added an EQ that has just shaped kind of the drums, just inducing the transient of the snare a bit and the highs, getting rid of kind of the muddiness in the kick and then kind of like the mids, and then kind of cut off the kick just at 20 hertz. Next then I've added a saturator, just very subtle saturator. Just going to turn everything off for a minute and go through it. I'm going to keep this on, keep that on. So like this is stuff probably that you won't be able to hear, like this saturation. It just adds just a bit more to the frequencies. Next then I've added a thermal. This is really kind of transforming the sound. I've just added a crunchy bus. Kind of brings quite a lot of the sound. Next then I've got a little radiator, kind of doing the same. Next then I've got like this parallel glue compressor, which is really compressing it. And then I've got a gate, which is just trimming kind of the tails a bit, keeping it all kind of tight, cohesive. A free clip, which is just clipping it. And what this is doing is basically normalizing the level, so it brings it down to -12, which is kind of the bass level I want it at, and then I can shape it all the other sounds around that then, just personal preference. Then after that then I've got a utility, just making sure that there's no stereo width in the low end. So that is kind of a very basic general approach to kind of mixing my drums. Obviously we're at the like 20-minute, 30-minute mark of recording, but you can go a lot more in depth and precise with this, but this is kind of just like a general approach. And then you can just I'll quickly add a very basic bass. Yeah, got a little bit carried away there, but yeah, just to add some context. Okay, so I think in the next video, I'll showcase, not basses, I'm actually going to save that. Yeah, in the next video, I'll showcase how you can arrange these drums to create different patterns. So we'll leave this as one patch, and then I'll copy this over, create another patch, and then we'll create kind of different drum patterns, and just arrange it differently. See what vibe you're feeling. For example, like you could just remove the kick, something like that, or do something like this. Something like this. I'm just going to turn hats off a second. Do something like this. Something like that. maybe more techie kind of rolling drums. I'll show you some examples. If I just go into like drum loops, I don't know, like that's more of a break. Yeah, just techie kind of rolling drums. But yeah, I just thought I'd spend some time kind of going through kind of simple mixing techniques that I would generally use on my drums while I'm kind of getting an idea down. And then obviously you can be a lot more in depth and thorough with kind of the process. So yeah, next video we'll go through different drum arrangements, different kind of patterns, and then see how we go from there. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy the content and want to see more. Let me know as well what sort of stuff you guys want to see as well. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts of kind of these videos in general, and which kind of videos you guys prefer. If you guys want to see more mixing, more drums, more bass design and whatnot, yeah, let me know in the comments below. I know it's been a while since my last video. I've just had some personal stuff going on. I've been moving, I've been away, but I'm now in a new flat in Bristol. So I've got my own studio going on, so I'm hoping to get videos out weekly, fingers crossed. But yeah, if you guys don't mind supporting the channel, just so I know that you guys are interested in the content. I've also left some links in the description for you to find my socials and to support in other ways. But yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.